We're going to create some training videos out of this today. Welcome to everybody. Elder Sister Bloomfield, this is your district. Do you want to get us started?
Oh, sorry, we're on mute. Elder Gifford, now after this recording, do you post it? Where do you post it?
I will make the YouTube just like you did the last one, and I do our videos. I recorded the last one, already put it on YouTube, and it's inside of our videos, and I'll show you where when I get to that part here in a minute. So it's in Google Drive, so it's there.
Okay. Elder Stewart, could we call on you to offer a prayer?
Elder Sister Bloomfield, do you have anything else before we start?
I don't. I'm sorry. I'm just waiting for your wonderful training.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. We did this last time. I'm going to try it again. I'm going to go ahead. Normally, I don't do this when we have all the students, but I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody so we can. Some of you have muted yourself anyway, but I did click unmute. That worked really well last time. And so let's go ahead and we'll try that again. And that way we can kind of just talk as we need to. And so, okay, looks to me like we have everybody unmuted now. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to begin. And I think it's probably helpful. I have tried to put, I work with the two monitors on my computer. And so because I'm using two different recording devices today, I'm using Zoom, which normally is what you would use. I'm using a second one. So I'm trying to do everything off of a single monitor. So I'm going to be moving some things around a little bit. So bear with me a little bit. That's more for my sake than your sake. But the first thing I want to talk about is if you have not done so, I'm going to share my, my desktop here. So if you've not done so, we encourage you to go into your to the Google Drive for Pathway Utah Virtual Missionaries that we've created. And inside of there, there is this is the webcast that President Gilbert did, or President Clark, excuse me, did back in August, July. And so we put the notes from that is there. But then the other part that's there important for you, and I'll just go ahead and get you started right now. And this is down in your quick link access. This is where you click on. You can find everything that's inside of there really fast, or a lot faster, hopefully. And you click on there. And this will pull up all the different, a quick link for the different things that are in there. Now, Elder and Sister Bloomfield, we were talking about that a few minutes ago. And so up here under missionaries, let me look here for a second. Well, probably the easiest way, we just go down here, click on the videos, unofficial videos, and there you will find where did I put it?
And we looked in there and couldn't find it.
Okay.
I listened to it and
I did find it
watched
too. I did too.
But I don't see it there now.
And I think it was in there.
That's
Oh,
where,
right there.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Top line.
Yeah, that's the one for President Gilbert.
He was looking for the training one. That's the one we couldn't find.
Oh, I see.
Right. Okay, I'll make myself a note. I thought I put it on here, but I will go back and put that in there.
And everybody should watch that recording from President Clark. It's great.
Yes.
Does the quick access automatically update if we have that as a bookmark?
It automatically updates when, so the Leadership Council is the one who is managing this. Primarily, I think Elder Edwards and I are the ones who are doing this, and so we try to keep it current. I would say to you that if you find something and going, oh geez, where'd that come from? Just let us know, and if you find something that's more current than what we have. But yes, we are trying really hard to keep this current. There's a lot of information that's on here. And basically, so if I go back to the drive where it's all held, you have all been given link to this drive, and inside of this drive there are folders, if you will, or maybe a better way to call this is drawers in a filing cabinet. This is your filing cabinet. And inside of these drawers, you will find a variety of subjects that are in here. And we'll talk about each one of those a little bit. But then we tried to create this quick link, trying to help make it easier for you, which comes up, you just click on that. And then, so we're trying to make it as easy as possible. And so we have anywhere from forums to gathering to specific things for the missionary. So for example, for the missionary, here's missionary guide, and it goes to how to do, or the missionary guide that you will use in the first semester. That is linked straight to the Pathway site, which is to their drive, and so it should stay current. So we have it. What I'm trying to say is we didn't download the document and then put it into ours. We did it first, but then we realized that they were making this what they call a dynamic document, meaning they were making changes to it. So we went away from that. Just like you will find. I'm looking here real quick. Sorry. Oh, the resource center. That's what I was looking for. You know, you have things in here for the resource center. No, that's not what I wanted. My apologies. This is what it's after. The missionary services. We did not try to duplicate anything that's in the missionary services. We linked to the missionary services page, which if you're not familiar with this page, you really need to become familiar with it. It's missionary.pathwaysupport.org. And we'll be working in this a little bit today, but I want you to be aware of that because that's what's on there, and it is on here. So missionary services. Let's go back over here. Where did I go? I'm not seeing a few things. So
missionary.pathway.org.
Okay. Well, I will make a note here, and anyway, that's another spot. I will make sure we add that on there.
And we do have a link to that missionary services.
Yes. And if nothing else, so let me go back to we all just got an email this week. So let me share with this, always in your email when you get emails. This is the weekly missionary update that comes. And so at the very bottom, you will always find links to these key things. This is the Pathway support page, academic dates, deadlines, Pathway Worldwide. Let me go back to another one.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yes.
So the announcements we do for our students, do we take it from that weekly email, or is there another place we go to make sure that we're doing the right announcements for the students?
They just come right from this. This that I'm showing you now is what your normal emails look like, okay? And so I'll just go ahead and we'll talk about this. So how do we prepare? What do we do to prepare for a gathering?
Elder Gifford,
Yes.
we have lost, and I don't know why, your screen. Not the Zoom room, but we've lost the screen that you were showing us all this on, and we didn't touch anything. I don't know how to get that back.
Anybody else missing the screen?
No, I can see it.
Elder Sister Hayes, I'm not sure.
Is your screen just black, Sister House?
No, it's on our Google Chrome. We can see that, and now we've lost the video.
Now, can you see us?
No, I can't see anything. Is just the Google Chrome.
By minimizing that window.
Go.
No. And now I've lost you.
Okay, so look for your Zoom icon
Yes.
and click on your Zoom icon and see if that doesn't pull us back up.
Yes. It
Okay,
pulls
can you
us
see
up,
it?
but I don't have your screen still.
I don't have the screen up. I pulled it off, so you should just see us.
Okay. Okay.
Can you see all of us?
Yes.
Okay. So let's start again. I'm going to now share. I'm going to go back to my desktop. I'm sharing my entire desktop.
Okay.
All right. So unless they've changed the format, this is what your missionary update looks like every week. This one happens to be the November 26th one. Okay. And everybody can see this now?
Yes.
Okay. So your missionary update, it's going to come with important updates, weekly training for missionaries, things that, you know, we may need to encourage the students on. This case, we were talking about registration for next semester, some good to know, wisdom and order. But I wanted to start here before we talk about how do you prepare for your gathering is at the bottom are your quick links. There's your handbook, your marketing, academic dates, lesson plans and resources, training tutorials, and quick links. So your quick links, if you click on that, that's going to redirect you to the missionary services page. And so just kind of be aware of that. So, all right. So what do we do? How do we prepare for a gathering? Well, what I typically do is I'll look at this and I'll say, okay, what are some important things in here? And if I look at this one of the first things that I see is, well, I need to make sure the students are aware that the help center is going to be, our support center is going to be on holiday hours. This happened to be during Thanksgiving. And so we make sure they're aware that they're be on support hours. Because we're talking about registration, I want to make sure I talk about registration. And then even though the students are all supposed to be receiving the update, and because you're all new missionaries, I'm going to click on the new student update. It's a little different than the others, similar but a little different. And so you'll find things that are in there, and you'll see right there, it's already talking about the support hours for Pathway. Well, you have a couple of issues here that go on, and that is that you'll find that students, number one, don't read their emails, don't pay attention to their emails. So that's kind of a training that you go ongoing with your students to remind them they need to look at their emails every single week, at least a couple of times a week. And these come out on Tuesday. So make sure your students know that, because that's how they receive communication from Pathway. That's how they receive communication from you. That's how they receive communication from sometimes from instructors. And so for some of our students, they don't want to pay attention to their email, and they need to. Okay, I cannot overemphasize the need for them to pay attention to their email, and so you're going to have to instill that in them. And one of the things you're going to have to ask multiple times when they ask questions, you'll be saying, all right, have you read your emails? Have you looked at your emails? You know, and I can guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they have not.
Make sure all the students get it.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
is
some,
that
some don't.
So check with your students early on, have them look in their spam or junk folder and everything, make sure they're getting this. If they're not receiving their weekly updates, then they should let you know so that you can send that information to Elder and Sister Bloomfield so they can take care of passing that on. Elder Sister Bloomfield, that'd be them to Elder and Sister Cotter so they can work with the Lowrys to get that taken care of. So again, I look at this and I'm saying, okay, what do I need to make sure the students know? I'm going to tell them, say, make sure we're in 3rd semester. We're still telling our students, make your weekly email, okay, your weekly update. We still tell them that every single week. And in this case, I'm going to say, okay, just a quick reminder that, you know, we're on limited hours. And then I may look at here and say, is there anything specifically in here that I want to highlight? And in this case, I may have looked at Mike DeLuna's video, or maybe I looked at, I won't even try to pronounce her first name, but Oliveira. And may have looked at that and said, you know, hey, this has got some really cool stuff in there, and I might highlight something that was said as a result of that. I do talk a little bit about social media early on with them, only because Pathway shares a lot of stuff. Like when we watch our monthly devotional, it's on Facebook.
And the devotional's monthly with Pathway, not weekly?
It's monthly. That is correct.
Okay. Is it always on a Tuesday?
Correct. It's always on Tuesday at 4 o'clock. It's live on Facebook, and then they can watch it recorded after the fact.
Thanks.
But
So-
their lesson on the next time they have a lesson that week, they'll discuss that discussion. So
Okay.
that's why they need to watch it.
Okay.
Did you say monthly at 4 p.m. on Tuesday?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, first Tuesday of the month. And
And
then,
it will be in your update.
right.
Okay.
Albert Gifford.
Yes.
I know being a student in Pathway, I have the devotional as part of one of my courses. Is that different for BYU Idaho online students and Pathway students? Do they do their courses through Canvas, and would they have a devotional link as well, or no? It's just on Facebook.
They do it through Canvas, yes, but I do not believe Pathway shows the devotional through Canvas. I believe it's all done through Facebook.
The regular weekly devotional through BYUI is done every Tuesday, and it's a recording of the same one that all the students get at the university. So it's different than the Pathway devotional.
The Pathway devotional is typically 5 to 8 minutes in length.
And the other one is usually an hour.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, good point. So I just wanted to show you real quick. This is the kind of update we would see, because we have students that have been in for a longer time, and so you can see here how preparing for the next semester and so forth. All right. So from that, let me just pull up real fast. I wasn't planning on showing this, but I will.
Do you keep your same students from each semester as you?
Typically, yes.
You have them for the 3 semesters.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Good question. While you're pulling that up, have the students that are brand new received these weekly emails, or does that start now?
It should start now for them.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
They probably should have got one this week.
Yeah, they should be getting one. They may have gotten one this week. I don't know.
We did.
Yeah, but we got a missionary one. I didn't see anything there for students that time, but I haven't paid attention today. It would have come today, and I haven't seen anything yet today. So, all right. So let's continue on with how we prepare for the gathering. There's a lot of ways you can do that. You can use, this happens to be Keynote, which is the Apple.
Yeah.
My wife's saying there is an update.
This just came Tuesday. So
Yeah, it came on Tuesday.
there is the-
Okay. This is the a way you can do your gathering. I'll show you a couple of examples. This happens to be back in November. Let's go. This is December. We like to have a little fun with it, add some graphics for the season. You can see we've changed the colors a little bit. You can we put this up 30 minutes before we start is how we do it, and we put it up so that everybody when they come on early, they know, yep, I'm in the right place. And then we just, and this is really pretty simple. Here's our first slide. Once we start, we welcome them. We have a prayer. A student has been assigned for a prayer, and then whoever our lead student is has a spiritual thought.
Can I ask you a question about spiritual thought? Because I watched your gathering that you have on the website, or on the the example with your group.
Yes.
If you have a song and a spiritual thought on the academic hour, do you still have a spiritual thought in the religious portion?
No, because it's just one continuous. You start with a prayer at the beginning of your academic, and then you close with a prayer at the end of your religion. You don't have 2 prayers.
Oh, so the second student then doesn't have to give a spiritual thought.
That is correct. The other thing is that in virtual, we no longer have to do a song. We actually have gone to the spiritual thought instead of a song.
Okay, that's a good.
So that's for virtual only. Okay.
Is it okay if we have the religion part before the academic class?
You should do it the same way as everybody in case they
Yeah,
people go to the next one.
The problem you have, Sister Gifford's pointing out, is that if you don't do it in the same order, everybody with academic first and religion second, if you change the order, then if somebody's substituting, they need to catch one or the other, it throws them off.
It's a problem for the language students too, because they don't have to stay that last hour.
That's right. That's
and
right.
so they really need to be able to start their class at the regular time.
Right. So it should be academic first, followed by religion. And as Sister Anderson just pointed out, your language students are not required. They have the option to stay if they want, but they're not required to stay for the religion.
Is the song optional then, or should we eliminate?
We don't do a song we haven't done it all semester since Pathway came out and instructed us not to do a song. To just
they instructed you not to do it. All right.
Right. Okay. So this is our beginning. So prayer and spiritual thought, all good questions. We have announcements. You can see here, this is back in December. And as I said, the very first announcement is always read your weekly student updates. And then we had a new announcement on here this time, and I'll just point this out. We discovered that some of our students across Pathway, they bookmark their coursework and they never look at their portal. And just like their email, they need to be looking at their portal, the portal window, every single week, at least twice. Now, there's a video that explains that we did with a student that really goes through in detail what's inside of the student portal. So if you haven't watched it, I'd encourage you to do so. It will help answer a lot of questions about what they see. But just make sure your students are aware of this. So in this case, we talked about support was on holiday hours and when their classwork had to end. And then we just immediately went into the lead student. There was our lead student and who the observers were. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. And then we had a break after the first hour where a 10-minute break, and that allowed people to take care of whatever they need to. And that's when we did our observing student review with the lead student. And then we went right back into the lead student for the second hour. And then in this case, we also announced what's coming up the following week. And in this case, that was just before Christmas. So this will be next week for us. This will be who will be for the new year. And then we had our closing prayer. And you can see, I mean, we just had a little fun with the graphics and the pictures and stuff. You know, I started to say we're using Keynote, which is an Apple product. We've also used PowerPoint, which is a Microsoft product. And then you have Google Slides, which is on in Google that you can use. Any of those three work just fine. If you are struggling with how to present these, I would encourage you to go watch the video. I'm not going to teach you how to create a video, how to create a slide show, because there are plenty of YouTube videos out there already to explain that. But what we've discovered is there are some idiosyncrasies, for lack of a better term, when you go to present these in this format. So I would encourage you to go watch the video that we prepared on how to share your slides with your students once you presented them. So, and I'll give you a case in point, is this is with Keynote, particularly I'll use that one as an example, the Apple product. If I were to click on the play, which is up here, this button right here, and try to play this video, it takes over my computer, and all of a sudden I lose control over what it is I'm trying to do. And so there's some other steps I have to take so I can show this without it controlling my computer. So again, there's already a video on there and a presentation video, and I'm not going to spend any more time on that. I want you to do that on your own.
Elder Gifford, how do you pipe in music to that? I know you've done it where when they show up, there's music playing also. How do you do that?
So there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can put a video into your embedded into your slideshow. We were doing that, but we've actually stopped doing that. I'll show you what we do. So I happen to we use a Mac. You can do the same thing whether it's Windows or a Mac, but you have music on your computer probably. And in this case, we just have taken and we will play. My wife likes me to play the stories of Jesus. So I'll just do this. And so 30 minutes before, when I bring up that one video saying, hey, you're in the right spot, I then turn on this and play it in the background. And so while they're waiting, yes, and we're unmuted as the host. So all they see on their screen is this slide, and they hear the music in the background. Just play the music in the background. So if you're uncomfortable with it on your computer, play it off your cell phone, Android or iPhone, whatever you have, you can do that.
So you're sharing your screen the full 30 minutes before class starts. Is that right?
We try to start 30 minutes beforehand, and then starting about 10 minutes beforehand, we'll go ahead and 10 to 15, and it depends because when we're first with new students, we started earlier, but now we usually about 10 minutes before, we'll go ahead and if we have a lot of students on, we'll start checking their microphones and their videos to make sure they're okay. That's all your preliminary stuff. Now, because you're starting with new students, they're gonna want to get on earlier. We always invite our students to join 30 minutes before, up to 30 minutes before. We tell them we'll be on, and so we are, and we're sitting right here, and we have our video on, and the mic is on. So if they want to talk to us, we'll mute the music and talk to them and answer questions and stuff and help them out. Otherwise, we just invite them to listen to the music while other students are gathering. But we just find it works really well to have students come in early so they can make sure all the technology issues are fixed. So just kind of be aware of that and think about that as you're preparing to start with your group coming up.
Can I ask you one other question I encountered? I was trying to show, I was trying to tell one of my students how to look at the gallery view as opposed to the speaker view. But every time I shared my screen, I would have what we see on your screen, which is just kind of like an abbreviated view of it. And so I didn't know where to find the gallery view to kind of explain that to her.
You're talking about with Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a couple of different options with Zoom. I'm the host. It's a lot easier for me as the host. Let me rephrase that. There are things I can do as a host that I can't do as the presenter, and vice versa. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, you can't see what I'm showing, but you'll be able to see it later when I pull up this section of my training video. So right now, I'm doing what's called a grid view, and that means is that I'm seeing all of you at a time on what's called the grid view. Mm-hmm. They also have what they call the thumbnail video, or they have what they call the speaker video. So those are all different video. When you are the one presenting, that you can click on to decide how it is you want to see. Now I've taken that off and I'm not sharing at the moment. But if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see either speaker view or a gallery view. So a student who is watching and observing can click on either one of those screens. Now here runs into the problem, however, is that they say, well, I can only see, if I'm in speaker view, whoever's talking is going to be the person you're going to see. If you're in gallery view, you want to see everybody, okay? So right now I'm in gallery view on my screen. And so that's what you're seeing as you're seeing that. Now I'm in speaker view. Okay, can you see the difference?
They can't see.
No.
Because you're not sharing
I'm not
the screen
sharing.
anymore.
Sorry, I'm not sharing. Sorry, I'm
You unshared.
unshared.
Right.
Okay.
No, but I
So-
get that concept. But when I would say, go up to your right corner, you should be able to see, you should click on speaker view, she would say, there's nothing there. And so then I tried to share my screen, but when I did that, then it minimized it and made it small. And I couldn't find a gallery view to say, well, this is what it looks like. So
It's going to,
is
it's
it a
always
setting
going to make
or?
it, it's always going to make it small when you're sharing. Okay.
Okay.
And so here's the issue you have for students is that, and I know it's in one of the videos, but that we created, but if you're sharing or someone else is sharing and you want to be able to see as the missionaries, you want to see everybody's on there, or some of the students want to see everybody's on there, what will happen is that on the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to have a line that will separate what's being shared with who's participating.
Mhm.
It's generally two lines that are vertical side by side. Okay.
And it's in the middle.
Yeah, it's right, and it's right in the middle. Thank you. Yeah, it's right in the middle on the right-hand side of in the separation again between pictures and what's being shared is where you're going to find these two lines side by side. Click on those two lines. You can move them right or left. Okay. You can move those, and by moving them, we will do is we'll move them to the left, which will shrink what's being shared, but it increases and allows me to see more of the students at the same time.
But what's being shared will not be altered on their screen.
Correct. But that's only for mine. Everybody has to do that themselves. So that's for my screen. So in your case, Sister Nelson, we are, and you guys are going to be able to test this in just a moment because I'm going to start sharing again. You can actually practice that. In fact, let's share just so you can see right now. I'm going to go back to my desktop. And you should be able to, from your desktop, I'm going to share the quick access guide is what I'm going to share. And you should be able to see to the right-hand side of the quick access guide, you should be able to see your, the photographs.
Mine are up at the top.
Are you on speaker view?
Okay, are you on full screen?
No, I'm on gallery.
Are you on, but are you on full screen or partial screen?
Oh, right. I'm on full screen.
Okay, exit out of full screen.
How do I do that? You can't see.
Hit your escape button.
Oh, just escape. Oh, okay.
Okay. Now do you see your two bars?
We don't have them.
No, I don't see two bars.
And then ours.
When we go out of full screen, then it puts everybody at the top and we don't.
Yeah, I'm at the top. Everybody's at the top.
Okay. So change from, that means you're on, probably on thumbnail, or change to the grid video or the,
Speaker view. No, I don't want
not speaker view. Yeah, you can even change the speaker view.
No.
I don't see where to change it because all I've got is swap.
Elder Gifford?
Yes.
So on a Windows PC, at the very top, you'll see View Options next to where it's the green share bar, and you can choose side-by-side mode to move those to the right, or turn it off to have them at the top.
You're right. I forgot about that setting. That's actually on the Mac too, and I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, because we don't have it either. So that's probably something we need to change.
So
Do we need to change that to side-by-side mode?
Yes. That's what I would do.
And now the two little lines are
Oh yeah, I see the two little lines. They're very little.
Yes, they are. But in the middle should be two of them that are a little wider than the others, and that's how you move side to side.
Okay.
On that thing right there to make it full screen.
So Elder Gifford, on a Mac, where do you change that setting? Ours keeps moving to.
That's good.
So that's
View options at the top.
I'll turn it off, exit full screen.
Elder Cotter, you want to tell them where that is since we have an Apple?
So if you, I'm sorry, I was talking to Sister Carter about something. View options, if you click view options at the top, you can choose side-by-side mode or not. You can also choose zoom ratio. If the stuff that's being shared is too small, you can zoom it in.
Right.
View options right there.
You can also request remote control of the other person's computer if you want to do that. Most of you don't.
There's those two little lines now. Okay.
Elder Gifford, is there something when one of our students is the presenter and we're still the host, is there a button we push for our assigned lead student when they present?
There's nothing you have to do as long as as long as you haven't changed the configuration from Pathway. There's nothing you have to do.
There is one suggestion that I would make is if you want your lead student to be able to visit breakout rooms and jump from room to room, then you want to make them a co-host. That's the only other privilege they'll receive as a co-host is that they'll be able to move to visit the different breakout rooms and see what's going on.
So they're not assigned to breakout rooms. The lead student is not assigned to breakout rooms.
Yes, they are. But they can move, as a co-host, they can move to a different breakout room.
Okay, I understand.
It's an option. We've never done that. I mean, we've had them sometimes as co-host, but we've never had them move from breakout to breakout. They've just stayed in their breakout room. So.
And you would just put them in a room as if they were a regular student at that point?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
We've offered that ability, but very few of our lead students ever did that, visited other breakout rooms.
Yeah. Okay. So we kind of, I kind of jumped ahead of my agenda a little bit, but let's kind of go back here a little bit. I want to keep going and talking about what is inside of this drive. All right. So you're going to need forms. There are a lot of forms that are on here to help you get you started. For example, here is your lead. This is from Music 101.
And then go to the right.
And this is your lead student sign-up sheet. Okay, you can use that lead sign-up sheet if you choose. This is one that BYU has put together, and it has your week 1. You can put in the date and the topic and so forth, and that's fine.
Is it interactive?
I'm sorry?
Is it interactive?
Say it one more time.
Is it interactive?
Yeah, well, okay. So what you have with these documents, this is from BYU. You need to, let me say one thing about Google Drive. Everything that's on our drive that is not BYU specific is read only, which means you need to copy it, make a copy of it onto your own drive. You can create a Google Drive. Everybody who has a Gmail account has a Google Drive. And so you're going to want to create your own Google Drive. Let me just show you here, for example. Here's my drive, and I have a variety of things on here from Pathway to my work to personal and so forth. You know, for example, I have on here home movies that we've created for our children and for us. And so that's there. We have, again, stuff from work. There's some things on gardening and so forth. But here are things from just specifically from Pathway. And I have the Pathway Utah Virtual Missionary folder or file cabinet, if you will, that we are working with, that we're talking about today. But I also have a couple others that I work with my students. For example, here's one that I work with our students, I should say. And this is our sign-up sheet. I'll show you our lead sign-up sheet for winter. Now you'll see in here, we have everything assigned except for one. We have all the lead students for academic, all the lead students for religion, and we have all the prayers have been assigned. So that's already done and it's prepared. Now that looks different than this sheet here. So you don't have to use either or, but I'm just showing you an option. We found this, somebody else had created this and we really liked it. And so we said, okay, we took this sheet as an option. And so we went ahead and used it, and we've just updated it. And so when we come back around a year from now for winter 2021, all we'll have to do is erase all the names. The lessons will probably be the same, change the dates, and we're ready to go again. But the only people, and for this particular folder within our file cabinet, all of our Pathway students have access to everything that's on here. So we have all kinds of stuff in here for them.
That's how we had them sign up.
Right, that's how we had them sign up, is that we shared this document with them, we shared this folder. In fact, when we first started the sign up back around Thanksgiving, we shared this folder in our Group Me page. And so students were able to start signing up right away. Before we ever started asking in our gathering, they were signing up on this.
So if you have problems with them signing up, I mean, do they typically sign up for a academic and a spiritual and the religious lesson?
So, yeah, it just depends. Go ahead, say that.
It just depends on how many's in your class. We try to get everybody to at least do one, and then we start putting others in as needed. And some of them
have to ask, obviously, because they're not volunteering.
Right, and if they don't volunteer, then we say, if you don't volunteer a date, then we'll start assigning.
Yeah, she's really good at voluntold.
You're the enforcer, huh?
Being voluntold. So in your first week, your very first gathering, you're going to be teaching whoever's teaching that first two lessons or first lesson. You're going to be talking about the gathering and how it works, and you're going to also be talking about the lead student and the observing student. And that's the perfect time at the conclusion of your gathering, or towards the end of your gathering, to bring all that together and say, okay, we need to start putting our lead students together. And, you know, there takes some time of trying to put them at ease, and we've had to tell them multiple times, you're not the instructor, you're not the teacher, you don't have to prepare anything. We show them the agenda. We'll bring up a sample agenda so they can see what it looks like. But just let them know they don't have to do anything other than follow the agenda and lead the discussion with those who are there. So I guess what I'm saying is you got to put their minds at ease, because.
Well, and two is we've noticed a lot in our class. There's a lot of anxiety that's why they're doing virtual, because they don't want to be in person with people. And so if they want to partner up with somebody, that's okay. Have two people do one lesson, that's okay. So if that will ease their mind, they can partner up.
That's something I've talked to my students as I've done all their interviews with them on Zoom, so that I know that they have it installed and that they're able to get a little familiar with it and we can talk about it. But that's also something I include when we talk, is talking to them about what a lead student does and how they're not a teacher, they're a facilitator. You're there to facilitate the lesson. You have all the tools you need. You just present questions and then you let the class follow through with discussion. And I think that helps, you know, like you said, people are nervous. I remember being nervous about it. And I could talk to them about that one-on-one in a situation where I'm like, you know, if you have a lot of fear about this, I will fast for you. We will pray before you do your lesson. I didn't think about team teaching, but that's a great resource as well. But yeah, I think that's been helpful in doing that with the interviews.
We have found also that it helps. We found also that it helps to, we've offered, and not everybody does this, but we've offered several times where we've said, look, if you want to get on with Zoom in advance, first of all, your Zoom is available to your students to use that account anytime they want. But the other thing we've said, look, if you're struggling, you'd like to get on there with us and practice, let us know. We'll schedule a time with you. We'll get on with you.
Well, and you don't have to be there. If they want to get on and practice and play with it, you don't have to be there. So. In
fact, it won't be so much in the first semester as it will be in the second semester, but because the students have group assignments they have to do with different students from throughout the university, not necessarily from your gathering, we've made and encouraged them to use our Zoom as a place where they can do the gathering. We've had several students who have done that. So It's there. It's paid for by BYU. It doesn't cost anything extra for them to use it. Encourage them to get on and practice with Zoom and to become familiar with it. So it will help them a lot.
So last time you gave us a prep email for the lead and observing students and what you kind of say. And I looked for that. I couldn't find it. Did you post that somewhere?
I have not posted that, but I've had a couple people have asked me, so I will post that. So what she's talking is that there's an email I send out every week and just reminds them what their assignments are. I've pulled up on here that I'm sharing with you. This is week 1 for all of you, your PC 101. And I always send them the first week's academic, first week's religion class, as well as the sheet the observing students use for evaluation purposes. But here is, so I send that out in advance as an email. Let me.
For second semester, do you do the first lesson as well as the missionary?
No. This is just first semester. Yeah, first semester, there's an option where if you can find someone to do it for you, fine. Otherwise, you do missionaries.
Maybe it's done.
We've always had to do it as missionaries.
We've always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
As missionaries.
So, and again, I just reiterate. I mean, it's just right. It's really laid out. It talks about how much time, what the activity is. There's teaching tips and so forth that are right here. And this is week 1. So if you help students see that so they can see that that's what it looks like, that'll be fine. Now,
Sister Clark.
Yes, Sister Clark.
I know this is probably a stupid question, but I have seen this page and I've also seen, I can't tell you where I got it. It was at the bottom of one of our things that we went into. And it's that we clicked on the link that had the long number on it. It had an F in it? F250 or something like that?
Oh,
that's religion.
That's
okay.
a religion.
So what is that compared to what's on the screen right now?
This is the academic.
Right.
The religion is different.
Yeah. Like here's a religion.
There's a religion right there. That's your 250.
Okay. So we need both of them then.
And the 250 one doesn't say anything across the top. If you get it from the student missionary side, it just has a purple bar. So, but it does say lesson 1 or week 1, but it doesn't show religion 250 like that says Book of Mormon. The sheets we have, it just, that looks like that.
250. There's 250. Now, one of the things, Elder Cotter, I'll point this out, especially since you're on here. If you, and all of you need to be aware of this, in the Religion 121 is where they would go into more training on the lead student and how that works. Well, because you guys are skipping to 250, there's some in there, but it's not the same. So they're missing some of the training, Elder Cotter. So we may want to talk to the Lowrys about that. But anyway, but yes, I mean, yes, it looks different from the academic. This is what the academic, but the format is the same. So these actually come through the Church Institute and Religion classes, as well as not just this is done from an academic standpoint. This is done from a religion standpoint. So yes,
which are we supposed to use?
I'm sorry.
Both.
Both.
What age group are you teaching?
Older.
Okay, so they'll be using both. So the first hour is the academic right here, and the next one is the religion is the second hour.
Okay.
So it's 2 lessons.
So the younger group doesn't have the religion part, right?
Yeah.
18 to 30 only has academic.
Right, they have institute. And so you don't have to worry about the second one, other than to make sure that this info talks about lead students is included.
You go over that in the first lesson.
Yeah, you're going to make sure you include all this lead student training in your first hour. So just be aware of that.
So what we're gonna do the first
All right.
Just a heads up for this first week that we'll be teaching, there's a video to watch as part of the religion class, and I tested it. You might want to make sure you download that video rather than trying to run it live, even though you have a good internet connection. So many things can go wrong with everybody on, so we'll just download that video before and play it aside from that document, if that makes sense. It's a video at 7 minutes. It's in the religion agenda.
Yeah, but where do I find it?
It's linked in the lesson document.
If you go into preview courses, you can see.
Sister Clark, we'll get with you and help you get that set up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's continue. What I have done, just something I've learned, is because I had trouble accessing the website a couple times. I go in the beginning of the semester and I download all the lesson plans so I have them on my computer, similar to what Sister Anderson's talking about with videos. And then of course, I have to go back. Come spring semester, I'll have to redo that to make sure I have the current material. So, kind of be aware of that. But you don't want to do that until just before the semester starts, because any updates, you want to make sure they have the updates from BYU that are in there. All right, so let's go back. I want to talk about, we talked about the tracking sheets that are in there. I'm going to go back into the Virtual Missionaries file folder, file cabinet. You're going to find all the stuff is here, but it's also in your quick link guides. And if you struggle with your quick link guides, come in here. So you'll find there, like, here's your tracking form, here's things for lead student, observing students, and so forth, okay? So between the two, you should be able to find everything you want. Now, what is a lead student this was something we talked about last time, and let me make sure that, so some people asked last time about the lead student. What does it mean to be professionally dressed? And I'm looking here.
I looked at that.
Did you look at that link that I put on here?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a link in here on being professional dressed. I just grabbed from a couple of universities and stuck it in there to kind of give you an idea. The thing about when they're the lead students is, and frankly when they're participants, is they need to come prepared to learn. And you can't do that very effectively if you're laying on your bed and you're in your pajamas and you're, if you're sitting there eating snacks and, you're not going to do that. If you were going to the college, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't show up in your pajamas. You wouldn't show up with, well, most people wouldn't show up with a tray of food and everything else. So encourage your students to come dressed as if they're attending class. The difference is they're attending it on their computer rather than having to go somewhere. Your lead student should be dressed professionally. And you're going to give them some hints on what that means, but they're the ones ultimately are going to have to decide what that means. The observing student, we have the observing sheet that's on there, and we've talked about that. We've mentioned that rather. Let me just show you real quick here. Here's professional dress right here under gathering. Okay, I wanted to find the should be under lead student, under gathering. Okay.
When they are the lead student, is as I remember it from when I was in Pathways, there was a link every week for the lead student in that week's lesson. Is that where they find that worksheet, or is it something that we send to them for the agenda?
Yeah, it is there. We'll go through that shortly.
Okay.
It's there, but so what I wanted to get to was the observing student feedback sheet. This is the right one. Nope, it's not.
Why isn't it?
I'm trying to find the fillable one. It should be this one. Uh, you have this sheet that you use for the observing student. The observing students use this to see how the lead student is doing. They use this to just say, are they prepared? Was it relevant? Did they facilitate? You know, did it involve everyone? Did they teach one another? You know, the whole point of the observing student and when we do the review with them is not to sit there and say, oh, gee, you did a terrible job and you should have done this, you should have done that. It's to use that to boost it, to encourage them to say, you know, you did really good in these 3 or 4 things that, you know, you might have done whatever it was to make it better. For example, it could be something as simple of making sure you follow your time. We find with new students, especially when they're new at being lead students, that's probably the number one thing that we talk about. Is making sure that they are paying attention to the time and staying with the time and the agenda. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't any flexibility in that. And what we've discovered is when they're talking about the monthly devotional, they say take 5 minutes to talk about it. Well, we've never been done in 5 minutes yet. They tend to take a little longer to talk about the devotional. We also have found in the second semester with math, even though it gives them 10 minutes to do a math review, if somebody's having a hard time with that particular problem, they'll take the time to make sure their fellow students know how to do that. And we just kind of, within reason, we've left that alone, and then they work in the rest of the material and adjust the time.
We still end on time.
Yeah, we still end on time, exactly. We still work really hard to keep them going. Occasionally we've had to say, okay, let's move on to the next thing, but that's pretty rare. We do make sure we end on time. We have this little sign we've made up that we'll hold up like this. Just says 5-minute warning. It's all it is. We hold it up generally when they acknowledge it. Sometimes they don't, but we also use our phones to text and so forth to help people to know what's going on. So let's talk about, yeah.
Elder Gifford?
Yeah.
Just a question on this observing form.
Yes.
That you were showing. Do you fill it out, or do you just you know, display it and then just talk through each point after the gathering?
You know, in the person-to-person gathering, it's a lot easier to fill it out and hand it to the person. In this setting, it's a lot more difficult. So we've gone away from filling it out, other than to filling it out virtually and using it as our talking points as we're talking to students. And now that we're in the second and third semester, we don't even fill it out anymore. We just pull it up and say, okay, let's talk about these points. When I first start with a new class, I'm going to be more specific in highlighting things because they're new and they're learning. But I think that brings an important point up that I want to talk about for just a second. And you may or may not have noticed this a second ago when I pulled this up. So I'm going to pull this up and show you. When we talked about our gathering earlier, we mentioned that, let me pull this up real fast. So here is our gathering, that agenda. But if you'll notice here, you'll notice that the lead student is Alicia, but we have 2 observing students listed. From a best practice standpoint, having 2 students observe is really a good way to do things. And let me explain to you why. Number one, we're teaching students how to be leaders. That's one of our goals in Pathways, teaching them how to lead. And as we've talked about, a lot of them are uncomfortable. Well, if we've had 2 opportunities to have them come in and to observe, part of that observing is learning what they need to do the next time when they lead. For example, Jill, if this was her first semester especially, and she's never gone through this would be really good because she now has that observing sheet 2 times. She's had an opportunity to observe and to learn what the other people have done prior to her coming. Well, that helps her to become a better lead student. She's more comfortable, more confident because she's observed and watched and gone through a review process. But there's a second thing that I think is even, there's a second thing here, and that is we always tell our observing students that they're always the backup in case Alicia can't do it that week for whatever reason, and it does happen occasionally. Then Linda or Jill will become the backup automatically for the person. And typically, if Linda can't or Alicia can't do it, then we'll just have her trade with one of the observers. So we just do a flip-flop is what we do. But so that allows, there's your backup. So you never get caught without somebody prepared to be the lead student. So the third reason, and I think this is the most important reason, is that, you know, we're trying to help students get the gospel down into their hearts. And by strengthening the gathering and making it strong, we're helping make it easier for the Spirit to be present when we do the gathering. And what we have discovered is because the gathering goes so much smoother because the lead students are better prepared and they've learned how to be a lead student early on, again, because they've observed twice, they've been part of the review twice, they've heard the things we've talked about. And when we do the review, and there's a video on that, we use that to say, now, Jill, when you do your gathering, make sure you do whatever it is that we want to make sure. And we have found that the Spirit has been stronger at our gatherings by using this format. So this is a suggested best practice, is to have 2 observing students. And so basically when you go into at the end of your first hour and then you go into your second hour, you're going to go into a private breakout room. It's going to be you, the lead student, and 2 observing students. So there's going to be 4 of you or 5 of you for couples, missionaries, in that observing, having a private conversation about what happened in the academic or religion class. So I just want to point that out as you're going through that, to be aware of that. We really encourage you to follow this format. Yes, Elder Bloomfield. Were you going to say something?
I have a comment. One of the things that our trainer suggested, and I thought it was such a good suggestion, when you are discussing afterwards the lead student, rather than say, well, I think you could have, you know, maybe this could have gone a little better, is to ask them what they feel, if there was anything that they felt could have gone better. And a lot of times they already know. And so giving it to them to bring it up rather than you, and then you're able to discuss it, is a great way.
Yeah, I think you have to think about the feedback you give and always do it in a positive way. And I'm glad you brought that up, because you know, we don't want them to ever feel bad. You know, we had one of our students in the first semester who he felt really bad. He felt like he did a terrible job, and I finally had to call him up and say, his name is Levy, and I said, Levy, I said, you did a great job. I said, stop beating yourself up. And oh, Brother Gifford, I said, Levy, what did you learn out of it? Well, I learned da-da-da. I says, great. Then you did what you need to do as a lead student. You learned how to become better. And that's the whole part of becoming a lead student, is to learn those leadership skills. So when you're called into callings in your ward or stake that require you to lead a discussion, whatever, you're better prepared to do so. Now, one of the things we've also done as missionaries is that we always tell the lead students, keep your phone nearby. And so, you know, the chat is okay, but the chat can be distracting. And so we will use our phones and we will text them. And it seems like they respond better to our text messages than they do a chat window. And the only time we text them is if they're going too long. We'll say, okay, we're getting really close. We need to kind of move this along. And we've only had to do that a handful of times. More than anything else, what we've had to do is we've said, hey, these 5 students are not involved. Could you find a way, ask them to read something, or ask them a question like, you know, what did they think about something? And so that's taught our students to watch for that. In fact, a lot of our lead students have gone to making a list of who's in their class before we get started, who's there that day, so they can kind of check them off as they've gone through. And then, so we've done that. The other thing we've done is we've provided, see if I can find it here real quick. we have a, I'll have to look for this. We have a list of questions that we have done for gatherings, which is they're thought-provoking questions. I don't know. I'll have to look for it and find it. But anyway, it's in there. It's in your in the document here. Let's see here. Let's go. Okay. Oh, that's not it. Okay, I won't spend any more time looking for it, but we have this list of questions that some other missionaries put together. They're basically thought-provoking questions, and they were really good questions. So I will find that and make sure that it's on here, so that you have it. And we've always shared that with our students, so they have it to use also, and they've always appreciated that. So, okay. So that's how that's the what the observing students do. We've talked about the lead student gathering. L students, you're going to have L students, which are language students that have come in. If they are, when they attend, they're only required to attend the academic. There's information in here on L students and what your responsibilities are.
That may change.
But that has changed quite a bit. We don't do the same things we used to do in that area. So in fact, I think we've actually on the quick access, we've gone to
how are they determined not to be an L student? Because one of my students, when I asked her if she could give a prayer, she asked if she could give it in Spanish. And then I asked her about if she needed maybe some support. And she said that she was told by Pathway she didn't need, I guess, to be an L student. So,
okay, so that's a great question. So what happens is if English is not their first, if English is a second language, every student that English is not the primary language has to take a competency test, writing, reading, so forth, administered by Pathway. And depending upon what level they score, they need to then they either are designated as an L student, or if they score high enough, they just go in regular with everybody else. I would encourage your situation not to have them do it in a different language, because part of doing it Pathway is to learn to speak and become fluent in English. That's part of what we're doing for these L students, and making them more comfortable in the English language. And so have them, if they're uncomfortable, have them write it out in English so that they have it written down. They can do it that way, but encourage them to speak and use their skills. Now that brings up an important point when we talk about L students, and that is that what we have discovered is that we have an L student. Oh, we actually have several, but one L student in particular that is in our gathering that she's about ready to walk out after the first semester. And so we called her. We could tell she was frustrated, so we called her up and said, "What's going on? What's happening? Why is the frustration?" And her frustration was, she then taught us something. She says, I do pretty good in my English, and she did. But she says, when you speak to me in English, I have to hear it. I translate it into Spanish, think about what it is you said, then I have to translate it back into English before I can recite back out to you what it is. And she says, what I'm finding is in our gathering is you don't give me the time to do that translation I need to do, so I'm comfortable giving an answer back. We both went, oh, it was an aha experience for us, okay? And it gave us a great opportunity to teach our students about being, about diversity and being open with those who have different backgrounds and so forth. Now, in our current gatherings, we have students that speak Spanish, Portuguese, and there's a third language. I don't know, I can't remember. Anyway, we have like 5 L students and they're different languages. And so it's really, and the same L student I was talking about, when we got into math, the math phraseology or terminology is completely different in English than it is in Spanish. And so we had to go and try to find things to try to help her. And she'd been trying to get help from Pathway in BYU, Idaho, and wasn't getting it. And so finally we found some materials for her. And we have that now. It's of materials that's available to them to assist. And so we were able to find 2 different documents, 2 different sites where she could find the help she needed, and it solved her math problem she was having in the second semester, I mean. So
you bring up a really good point there, not just with language, but with thought process. A lot of times we ask questions, and if they don't respond immediately, we jump back in to answer it for them.
Right.
And take away that whole effect of them thinking it through and responding, whether it's a Sunday school class or an academic class.
Elder Stewart, you bring up a really good point, and that's great. So as you think about what he just said, you know, we have a tendency is we don't want there to be what we call in my work the pregnant pause. It's okay to have that pause. It's okay to wait, just to sit there, and it's uncomfortable. We're not used to sitting there and waiting, but it's okay to sit and wait for the answer. Eventually, someone will speak up, or an aunt will start answering, or eventually they may even say, "I'm not sure I follow your question," or whatever. But go ahead and wait and give them time. But so there's that part as well as what I'm talking about also. So kind of go back and forth with your students to help them understand all of that. So very, very good observation, Elder Stewart. Thank you for mentioning that. Okay, let me go back to my drive again. We talk about tracking students, and you'll find these documents. We track our students all the time. Whoops, in my wrong folder. We have an admin folder just for us that we track. So we track our students to know what's going on. You know, this is the name of all of our students. You know, we are not responsible for tracking attendance, but we do. We track attendance in case anything ever came up with. We know if they went to a different gathering that week, we track that just in case something comes up. We've actually tracked it a little differently this fall than we did in the spring. We found a little different way to do this, and as a result of that, so you'll see these dark lines. In this case, this is a student that was attending another gathering, and then she joined us, moved to our group, and then in the second half, she moved back to a different gathering, which we can do in virtual. We move from gatherings, and that she had some work situations. We have a student down here. She's not really part of our group. She's assigned to some other missionaries, but because of some situations that was going on with her, she was attending most of our gatherings, so we just kept attendance. And we kept that just so we know. Now, you notice this student right here, she's an L student. She hardly attended a single gathering all semester. She ended up with an A. And how she ended up with an A? She must have done super work because she hardly attended a single gathering. That's between her and her instructor. We don't turn this into anybody. But if it ever came back, we have this so that it's there. Most important thing is we also had was that we had a list at the very end where we could say, okay, who's registered? This is who's registered for the next semester. And so that's what this column is. And then I put down here notes so I could say, okay, these two haven't registered. Well, why not? Well, this one I happen to know because her mother's dying. Okay, and so she just said, I've got to take the semester off. I'll be back in April, but I've got to take care of my mom. Okay, I get that. Well, this student here, we've been working with her for about 4 weeks. She should be matriculating into straight in BYU, Idaho, but something happened because she was a returning student, came back this semester, and then she should have automatically matriculated. Well, it didn't happen. And so she's actually on my list to follow up with today to see where she is, because as of right now, she's still not in the system. So anyway, so that's, we just track it so we know where everybody is. Here's the other thing is that if I find out, for example, Anthony was not at our last gathering, because Anthony wasn't at our last gathering. Within the first 10 minutes of the gathering, Sister Gifford was on her phone, either calling in or texting and saying, hey, we've started the gathering, we're missing you, are you going to be with us today? And we have found more times than not that does a couple things. First of all, lets them know you're checking, and it helps encourage them to attend. And so it's really helped a lot with the retention, and students know we care. They know that those things about us. And they know that we're going to follow up with them. And so they're real good about texting us usually and saying, hey, I can't come today. Anthony, for example, got called in a couple times to work, and just last minute thing. And he had never missed last semester. So this second semester, he missed 3 times. He didn't make it. And that was unusual for him. That's because his work situation changed. So that's why we track that, so we know what's going on, so we can help them. It's all part of, as missionaries, trying to serve their students and to assist them. So that's just something for you to consider.
Elder Gifford,
yes,
if they let us know in advance they're not coming, can we arrange for them to attend another gathering and then provide that Zoom ID for them?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then just maybe send a note to that missionary that this person may be coming.
Right. And so that's how we handle it. Is you have the list here in this Pathway Utah Virtual Missionary. There's a list of all the missionaries at the very bottom. All the missionaries are there. There's the contact information, the emails, their Zoom ID, all that stuff is there. So yes, absolutely, use that information.
Okay.
To share that with with your students. And we would always email back the student and CC the missionaries involved, and just a short email, however way you want to word it. So okay. Yeah, absolutely.
We will have one student, she's doing in person, but for the month of February, she had some conflicts. And so we will have one student who will visit our gatherings for the month of February. I don't know which one she will attend, but okay, that will happen.
It does happen. That's just the nature of the beast. And again, thank goodness for virtual that allows us to do it. Okay. We've kind of gone through the Google Drive and what's there. Let me see here. I just want to talk about this real quick. If you haven't completed your student interviews, you need to do those now. Those should have already been done by now, unless you've got any that are joining you now at this late game. So make sure you're getting all your new student interviews done. That's really important to have done.
Brother Gifford?
Yes.
And I just texted or group me Sister Bloomfield. We had one that just was put on our list that is actually 44 or 45 years old.
I think I removed him.
Okay.
I did that this morning. He's actually the director over all of, is it North America, Elder Cotter?
Is that brother that was in my class, Sister?
Oh, that's in yours. Oh, no. I got to look at yours. Yeah, John Wilson.
So he
is the sister.
Oh, you have a sister? Okay, maybe I haven't seen that one yet, but I will take care of it.
Okay.
We like to tease Elder
Oh,
Wilson.
yes, I did. It was Kimberly Smith, right?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We like to tease Brother Wilson and remind him that we are doing our jobs here, and it's okay. He doesn't have to register every semester. He does that every semester. He registers.
Now he needs to withdraw.
Yeah. And we keep telling you, it's time to withdraw, Brother Wilson.
I think he's the only one that can be in 3 gatherings at the same time.
It was a little confusing.
It's a little confusing. So, okay. Now, okay, so we've talked about everything except Zoom. Let's talk a little bit about Zoom. You have, hopefully you're comfortable with sharing by now. We've been sharing a lot today. You can share when you click on share, you click that little green button. You're able to share a desktop. You can share a specific file. You can share your whiteboard, and so forth and so on. I want to talk about whiteboard for just a second. My wife is over here laughing.
We don't use the whiteboard.
We don't use the whiteboard.
none of the students did either. They couldn't get it. They didn't like it.
The whiteboard is okay and it's there. The problem with the whiteboard is you're trying to draw with a mouse. If you have a pencil, like an Apple Pencil, it works really well, but that doesn't typically work on a computer. So it's there if you want to use it, fine, but don't feel like you have to use whiteboard. If you want to learn how to use whiteboard, Zoom, by the way, has on there help for Zoom. They have lots of tutorials on how to use Zoom. I encourage you to use those, and that's one of the links that we have on this quick access. We use a different whiteboard. Works really good. So this is our board. I don't know what I did with my marker. I must have, oh, here it is. Whiteboard. Okay, I got my whiteboard. And I can erase it real easy. I can write more. 2 plus A equals 3C. Okay, there's my math formula. Don't ask me what that is. I have no.
Do they have math problems where if a lead student is creating an equation that one of the other students solves it, and is that typically used, or?
Yeah.
Most of them just do it on a document.
Right.
Like the equation, and then they'll discuss it, but mostly it's a Word document that they use.
Right.
The lead student doesn't create the problem. It's already in the agenda.
It's in the agenda.
Right. So,
but I mean, if he tries to encourage input from the students to solve it, that would be, I guess, when you'd use the whiteboard, wouldn't it?
what we've discovered, well, I can just tell you our experience. First semester, students tried it. They quit doing it. Second semester, they didn't even use the whiteboard at all. What they did is they had paper on it. They would write down paper rather than my portable whiteboard. They'd have paper, they'd write it on and they'd hold it up. Or they would have it pre-written on a Word document, and people would just share and they'd do it from there. They'll figure it out. They'll figure that one out.
They'll do it what's easy.
Okay. Let's talk about the breakout rooms. You don't have breakout rooms on your side, but if we had breakout rooms, we could create, for example, we have if I did 2 groups right now with who we have, we'd have 5 per group. I could add a room if I wanted to at this point, or I could recreate. I use the manual setting for when I'm doing the review afterwards. We set up as a manual so I can personally assign who I want. Then you have on the options for when you get your breakout rooms to take a look at this. You could have, and we always have checked to move all the participants in the breakout room automatically. We also have checked to allow participants to return to the main session at any time. And then there's a place where you can put in there where the breakout rooms will close automatically after 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. The nice thing about that is that it puts a countdown clock inside of their breakout room. But you don't have to. We also have checked where you notify me when the time is up. So it tells us as the host, which gives us the option to give them a couple of extra minutes, which we have a couple of times, or to go ahead and end it. And then we use a countdown after closing the breakdown, and where they set the countdown timer, we always set it at 10 seconds. And the reason we do that is just because we have found that too many people are, if you put it like at 60 seconds, which is default, it just lingers there. And it just takes forever to get people back. And so there's also a place when you do breakout rooms to where you can send a message to the group. And so we'll send a message out that says you have 60 seconds or 45 seconds or 90 seconds or something to that effect. Usually no more than 2-minute warning. The only time we go with a longer than a minute warning is that they've been into their breakout rooms for like 20 minutes, which sometimes in religion they are. Then we'll give them a little longer as a warning. That allows them to kind of wrap up their discussions and so forth. So
never gone over 5 minutes.
Yeah, we've never gone over 5 minutes. That's right. So that's kind of the breakout rooms. You also have a chat window on your screen. And so if you click on the chat, it pulls up, and the chat window, everybody has access to the chat, and you're able to set it up where you can either chat to everybody in the meeting or to just individuals. So I'm going to say, and I just told everybody hello. Okay. So you should have had, it should have bounced up to you. It should have, your little chat icon should have lit up, said you have a message. Probably is orange. So go ahead and just respond back so you can see how it works.
Did Sister Anderson do that?
I just responded.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So everybody's responding back. All right. Awesome. Now, if you want to, instead of send to the whole group, you can send it to individuals within the group. Now, on my side, on the far right-hand side, I have a place where I can say to either save the chat or allow participants to chat with no one, host only, everyone publicly and privately. I have it set on everyone publicly and privately. I've never had a reason to turn the chat off for this setting. We use that all the time. The other thing that it does is sometimes in the middle or maybe at the beginning, you need to share documents. There's also a place where you can, or a file where you can share things, a file. And so you go to your computer. In this case, I'm going to go to my computer and I'm going to share with you the Book of Mormon skills. So that Book of Mormon study skills is a 1.2 meg file. I think we found, was it 5 meg was the limit? It's either 5 or 10 is the limit of how much you can share a file over the chat window. But that way you can share the file. It stays in the chat window, where if you just drag and drop it into the message and send it that way, it doesn't always go through the same. So if you've got a file you need to share, this is a good way to do it. Now with GroupMe, one thing we've discovered with the GroupMe texting, we also have gone to sharing those documents that way also. And in fact, what happens when you get into the chat window, when you go in your breakout rooms, all the stuff that's in the chat window disappears. It doesn't go with you to the chat, to the breakout room. So our students have been using GroupMe for when they have parts that the different sections are going to discuss in the breakout room. They'll put it in GroupMe, and that helps them. So there's one way they can have that with them. The second way is they say, I need to share, and I'll share. I'm just going to share my agenda so you can see what I'm talking about here. So if I share this particular document and I say, okay, I want group 1 to talk about the Zoom, and I want group 2 to talk about resources. So the best way to do that is, rather than trying to share the document, you can do that. Again, chat doesn't work real well for that because it disappears. GroupMe can work. The other thing they can do is just encourage them to take a picture. So they can just hurry and take a picture of what the assignments are, and then once they move into their group, they'll have those assignments. Now, sometimes we don't usually tell people who's in which breakout room unless they need it, but occasionally we've had to for that reason. So just be aware. Now, with the chat window open, which it is on screen right now, if the chat window is open and if you're on mute, if you try to hold the space bar down so you can talk to somebody, it will not work. The chat window has to be closed for the space bar to work to take you off mute. So what are we talking about? So when you download the software onto your computer, under the audio settings, there's a place that should be checked. When you go into your settings, it should be checked that says use spacebar to unmute to talk. And basically what that means is, so you keep everybody muted during the session. If they want to talk, they just got to hold down that spacebar. That will unmute them and they can go ahead and talk. So I'm going to mute myself. And now I've held down the spacebar. I'm now able to talk to you. And as soon as I released it, I went back to mute. Okay? So that's really important. Hang on a second. That's really important to try to manage. We didn't mute everybody for this setting. We went ahead and said, let's be unmuted because there's only a handful of us. But when you've got 25 students in there and you got kids running around or whatever, you've got to mute everybody. Yes, Elder Cotter.
So the space bar will work with the chat window open, but if you click back on, if you put the focus back on the Zoom window, in other words, it depends on where your focus is. If you've clicked on some other window on your computer, the space bar does not work. But if you click back on the very top window, you know, like the title bar of the Zoom window, then the space bar will work again. It depends on where your focus is.
That's true. So that's true. So what he's talking about is if your chat's open and you're still, your primary emphasis, meaning that's where your cursor is chat, it won't work. I just tell people, don't just shut your chat window when you're not using it, because it becomes confusing sometimes when you're scrambling. So whatever works for you guys is fine. Okay, we already talked about how to see all students. We've also talked earlier about making sure you're on in advance. We encourage you to, again, to be on 30 minutes in advance so your students have a chance to come on, make sure technology is working. If things aren't working, a lot of times they need to go back out of Zoom and then re-log in. Sometimes they have to turn off their machine and turn it back on. So, and I will tell you right now that,
sometimes they have to download the app and look it in the web.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sister Gifford just brought up is that, so there's a couple things here is that the software for Zoom does not cost them anything. It only costs if they decide they want to use it like we are all using it, to have multiple people on at the same time. So for example, before we were doing Pathway Virtual, I was using Zoom for work. Well, I got a private account, but I couldn't talk to multiple people at the same time for longer than 15 minutes, or they wanted to start charging me for that. So your students should be encouraged to download the software to their computer, and here's why. When you use a mobile device, whether you're talking a phone or an iPad or a what's the Android version? SmartPad, I guess they're called. Whatever. The functionality is not the same. For example, last fall I was in at a conference. I was in Arizona, and I was trying to do a district meeting, and I couldn't share some of the stuff I needed to share with the iPad. And I've used it several times in my work, and I have the same thing. There are things I cannot do, and I cannot share and use the same functionality that I can on my computer. So Pathway has recommended from day one that they've said you've got to use a computer. The Chromebook does work primarily, but if you use a mobile device, they don't work. They work, but they don't have the same functionality. So we always encourage students to make sure they have a computer that they're going to be on and use the mobile device as a last resort, kind of like we described for you, Sister Clark, with your police officer, that if he needs to attend, he can attend on his mobile device, and he can get away with that as long as he's not the lead student. So that works. So be aware of that. The other thing is again, if they use the Chrome version or the internet version is what I'm trying to think of. The internet version through their browser, again, you have some of the functionality issues that are on there, and so they really need to download the software to their computer. Again, it's free.
Sometimes, if they're on one or the other, they won't be able to be put into a group.
Right. We discovered that.
They downloaded the wrong one.
Especially with the web browser based one, they don't go. We couldn't get them assigned to groups, so be aware of that. So again, encourage them to do that. Sign on in advance. Make sure everything's working. There are computer gremlins that will always hit whoever the lead student is. Whoever's the lead student is going to have computer problems, guarantee it. So
always happens.
So let's talk about computer gremlins and computer angels. Sister Jepson, who is in Elder and Sister Edwards district, taught us the word computer angels. Bless her heart, she's 67, 68 years old, 70 years old, something like that. Anyway, very computer illiterate, but she really wanted to do this. She wanted to learn, and she did. So we spent quite a bit of time with her beforehand, getting her set up, getting it done right. So it worked on her side. And then Sister Gifford spent the first 4 or 5 gatherings with her, so can help walk her through. And now she's becoming a pro. She actually did some training the other night in their last district meeting for other missionaries. So what you want to do is in this setting is be aware that if you're the lead student, you're going to have computer issues. Just plan on that. If you don't have them, then the computer angels were on your shoulders and you were in good shape. If Satan can interfere with the gathering, this is how he's going to do it. It's going to be with technology issues. So what we have encouraged our students to do, and they don't all do it, but some do, is we've said, hey, send us your presentation stuff in advance. So they'll send us their presentation stuff. So if they have any issues, which we've had happen multiple times, we're able to pull up that presentation stuff for them on our side. If they're going to have a video, for example, they will tell us in advance, I want to show this video, and they'll either tell us what the video is so we can go get it, or if it's something they're bringing in from outside, they will send us a link so that we always have it on our side. So it's a backup, if you will. It goes back to the same as having the lead student and 2 observing students. So there's your backup in case they get sick. Well, we're the backup if there's a technology issue. And so just kind of realize that you've got to be there to help the student in everywhere you can, and that's one way to do that.
So we had one that her power went out, and she was the lead student, but she had sent her stuff in there. So she came through on her phone and presented it while she was on her phone, but we had all the documents that we could share.
Oh, and by the way, her power came on 5 minutes after the gathering ended. Just trust us, it happens. Okay,
so we were prepared.
Yeah, it's you know, there's a great motto that some of us know better than others, but it's called be prepared, and you need to be prepared when it comes to Pathway virtual gathering. So that's all the stuff. That's another reason why to get on early, especially with your lead students and stuff, to get them on there to make sure everything's working. Again, if there's problems, have them turn off the program first and restart it. If that doesn't work, turn off the computer, restart it. One or the other will generally fix whatever the problem's going on. And we've had to do the same thing. So now I want to talk about lighting. If you notice today, I'm sitting here looking at all of you. You look pretty good. Elder Sister Jasperson, I'm not sure is that a window behind you? Yes, behind you there.
It won't be there. That just had to be moved in for Christmas, so it'll be out of there.
That's fine. That's fine. Elder Sister Martin, you have a window behind you. The reason I point that out, you're fine. You're okay. The reason I point that out is sometimes students will set up their camera looking in towards the window, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like here. If I open this up, do you notice how all of a sudden I'm starting getting washed out? Yeah. So if I turned off the light that's in front of us, you would have had a hard time seeing us. Okay. But
I think we're going to move our lamp around. We have a lamp now. I think we're going to move it around so it shines this direction. That should help out too.
Yeah, and you all look great. I just want to point out to you to be aware of lighting and be aware of lighting for your students and help them from day one. Help them with the lighting to make sure they're lit correctly and their face is lit. Now, I've had to move because I'm taping, I've had to move to my second monitor. Normally, I'm looking this way at this monitor and my face is completely lit. But because I've turned for my taping, one side is a little darker, and that's why you're seeing that. There's some great examples if you look here. But just be aware of it. Constantly be aware of the lighting. Be aware of your backdrop. What's behind you? We turned our desk around here recently, but before that we were facing our closet. We had to make sure the closet doors were closed and stuff. You know, just think of those things as missionaries and encourage your students to do the same thing. So just think about that. You're fine, Sister Stewart. You've got your books back there. Hey, I've got a library like that too. I love it. So I'm not concerned about that as I'm concerned with, you know, as I'm sitting here looking, Sister, is it Moster? Moster, you have pictures of your family behind you. Sister Anderson, looks like you have the same. Sister Nielsen, looks like a picture of a temple behind you. You'll see some pictures behind us, Elder and Sister Cotter. Those are not distractive in any way. That's all we're saying is look for distractions that can be behind you that would distract from the spirit in the gathering. So just constantly be aware of that. And, you know, there was one gathering, in fact, Sister Gifford wasn't even with us. I was with a substituted one week, and we had I think he was 18 or 19 young man who didn't really have an appropriate picture behind him. We'll just leave it at that. And so I called him and asked him if he could turn his computer or whatever. I didn't want to embarrass him. So I just called him on the phone and just said, hey, you know, this is what I'm seeing. Could you move? And he says, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't even think about that. And so he moved. So anyway, so be aware of that. Let's see, what else? And I think that's it from Zoom. So
actually, Elder Gifford, you had mentioned that you allow your students to use your Zoom room at other times. Do you just keep it open all the time?
I don't keep it open, but so the way it is, the way it's set up, it comes from Pathway this way. In fact, they've changed it recently, so you can't even uncheck it. So it's set up so that whether you're there or not, they can log into your room.
Okay, what do they see if you're not there? Because I've had a few emails that will say someone is in your room waiting, and
right.
I assume it's just students getting on to check because we don't have an appointment.
Right.
But if two of them get on, they see each other and they can actually converse, and anybody that signs into it will be there. So it's a great way.
Okay, so I don't need to set anything extra thing up.
Yeah, I think they just check it out. That happened to me one time. I happened to be on with another student, and the guy was just checking out how it worked, and he just went, oh, and he just left really quick, and I thought, wait, hi.
Yeah. Wait, when we first were starting virtual, we were getting these emails too, and I'm going, who's in that room? And so I'd go to pull it up, and one time there was a sister on there that she quickly got off, we'll just put it that way, and which was a good thing.
And they're just testing, I guess, to see
yeah,
if they get on.
They were testing and stuff. Now I don't worry about it. I get emails all the time that says, hey, somebody's in the room. I don't even worry about it unless I have an appointment with them because they use it all the time.
Okay.
So there's nothing, you don't have to worry about it. You're not the host. They're not the host. Nobody's the host. They're not recording anything. I mean, there's nothing they can do. So just be aware of that. So it was a good lesson.
Appointment with somebody though, how do you kick them off or whatever?
You know, if somebody comes on that is not supposed to be on there, you can go in the upper, you can't see this, but I can see it right now from my side. But I'm videoing this so I can show it later. So here's how you can actually hold by clicking. There's 3 little buttons to the side, the upper right hand corner. You can click on those buttons and it gives you lots of options. And one of them is that you can put that person on hold while you finish your conversation, or you can remove them.
Of their picture. They have to be on their picture.
Yeah, they have to be, you know, if let's just say you and I are having a conversation and Elder and Sister Cotter pop in and I need them to wait, I'll just say, Elder and Sister Cotter, I'm going to put you on hold for a minute while I finish my conversation with Elder and Sister Stewart. So I go up to the upper 3 buttons, I put him on hold, that takes him out of the conversation while we finish our conversation, and then when done, I can then go back and bring him back in.
Is that waiting the same as waiting room?
Yep. So I'm gonna put Elder and Sister Cotter on hold right now, and so you notice they just went off. They're inside of the waiting room, so I can see who's in the waiting room. So I can click, and on the right hand side it came up participants, and so I'm gonna. So now I just brought Elder and Sister Cotter back. But I knew they were there because I clicked on participants. I can click on manage participants and I can see who's where, who's what, who's doing what.
We felt alone.
Did you feel alone?
You're out in space.
Did you feel singled out?
Elder Gifford, I've used the waiting room for all of my interviews and I've loved it. It's not something you'll want to use for the gathering, but it's been great because no one has interrupted. I know when someone's waiting for us and I know when to get off, and it's been great. And that settings and advanced features if you want to use it for interviews.
Sure. And it works great. Mm-hmm. The other thing about when you're managing participants, I don't know if I told you this earlier, for managing participants, when you're the host, at the bottom, one of your features you have is, in addition to breakout rooms, you can do polling, which I've used a couple times, and then manage participants. If you click on manage participants, it'll bring you up a list of all your participants. It'll tell you what their status is, whether their microphone is turned on or they're muted or whatever, but you can click on mute all right there, and everybody goes off of, it automatically mutes them. You also can click on the mute participants on entry, so there's some, under more, it says mute participants on entry, which I usually have. Allow participants to unmute themselves, is what I do. Play a chime for when they enter or exit, I have clicked. Allow participants to rename themselves, so we definitely do that. And then there's a lock meeting, which I've never used, but that's, so if you want to lock it and say nobody else can join the meeting. But changing names, that's, in fact, that brings up an important point. You want people to be able to change their name. And so I'm going to pick on Elder Sister Cotter again. I'm going to rename them Elder and Sister. I don't know, Sister Cotter, do you call him Elder Trouble sometimes?
Mostly Sweetheart.
Okay. Here, we don't want to say Sister Trouble. So I can rename him, and you can see I've renamed him. I've said Elder Trouble. Okay. We have one sister that we work for some reason. So Sister Cotter, why don't you go ahead and rename yourself? Go ahead and fix it. We have one of the sisters that attends our gathering that for some reason her husband set it up with his name, and so it always comes down with his name rather than her name, and throws us off every time. And I click, okay, I know who this is, and so then I go ahead and change the name for her because she didn't know how to do it, and so. Are you getting that, Sister Cotter?
She's working on it.
Okay. Oh, that's all right, as long as you're finding it.
Where is that? Where is that?
So for you, it would probably be in the upper right-hand corner.
You can click on your picture.
Yeah, click on your picture. That's right.
Right click on it.
Yeah, just click on your picture. You can rename yourself. Sometimes we even hide ourselves. When we're in the middle of the gathering, we'll hide ourselves rather than put us in the view. So that's the other, the polling. I mentioned the polling. You can add, we've done that a couple times when we were asking questions to our students.
The polling.
When we made a couple changes in how we were doing the breakout rooms, then we sent them a poll to ask them, which they preferred, and so they responded, and that allowed us to do that without taking up time during the meeting. So I've only used it a couple of times.
So if you save a chat, where does it save when you want to look at it again?
I've never saved a chat, so I honestly don't know.
I think it's saved in your online account.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I hid myself from view, and now I don't know how to come back.
What did you do? I'm sorry.
I hid myself from view.
We see you.
We see you.
See you, but you just don't see it. Go ahead and click on your picture.
The picture's gone.
Oh, sorry. Upper right-hand corner. You should be able to see where it says.
Oh, yeah.
You see it?
Thank you.
Okay, now it brings you back.
So I'm just hiding from my own self.
Yeah. So sometimes we will hide ourselves, and like I said with students, and then we just go back up here to where it says show self view, which is up where the same place where our the different.
You see where that was?
Speaker view,
So
or
right click and choose hide view. Then it's
all right. So we're a good 2 hours into this. We basically covered everything. There are a few things we didn't cover because we didn't need to this time.
I do have 2 requests.
Yes, go for it.
So I was looking at the first agenda, and it talks about making sure they can see everything on the BYU, their BYUpathway.org. However, we can't access that. So I would like to be able to get on to see what they actually see. I mean, we can open the courses and see the courses, but I have no way, when I log on to that BYUpathway.org, it says, apply and whatever. Is there a way that we can see what they actually are going to see on their portal?
Yes, if you go back to the unofficial videos that we put together,
okay,
one of the videos is called Student Portals.
Student Portals, okay.
It's about a 20-minute video. We had one of our students in the last gathering, one of the last couple gatherings, who stayed online with us, and she helped us put that together.
So maybe I could ask a student to actually open theirs and share their screen so we could walk through some things together using their own portal.
Yeah, if they want to, that's fine. You don't necessarily need to, but
I just didn't know. I haven't really looked at it that close to see how much detail we need to go over on that.
Not a lot.
You shouldn't have to go through anything on that. That's
yeah.
Okay.
Just ask them if they're able to see everything.
Okay, and I guess if not, we can work on it together
the
later.
other students can help the other students out.
Okay.
You go back and watch the video. The video, and you're welcome to share the link.
I would just like to see what they see. Just if they have questions, I know where to guide them.
Yeah. And that's why we put that video together, so you could see what was in there. I just realized I did not show any of you this in this group. So we talked about the missionary services, but I want to show, I'm not going to go through all the stuff here, but I do want to show you very quickly here under courses. This is really important. First of all, you have the iLearn tutorial. If you are not familiar with the iLearn, we encourage you to take this tutorial so you can learn what is going on inside of how iLearn works for the students. It's a really good tutorial. It lets you walk through as if you were a student, and it'll take you probably an hour because there's different parts to it. The other one I wanted to show here real quick is your course preview menu. So again, this is under courses, the course previews. It brought up this screen, and then I'm going to enter the course preview menu. Now, you do not need to spend any time unless you really are desiring to know everything that students are learning. You don't need to do this, okay? You don't have to go in here so you can say, well, what are they learning this week? Unless that's what you really want to do, okay? But frankly, it's really not necessary to do that.
Yes.
So let's just take PC 101. Now, PC 101 is going to bring this up to you, and it's going to say, and this is what they will see, just the same as you're seeing. The difference here is you can't go in and log in or any of that kind of stuff, but you can see everything that they see inside of theirs. I wanted to share this with you. If you run into any issues at all, you can pull up the weekly gathering and say, here's the stuff that's in there. If somebody runs into a problem, you can pull it up and see exactly what it is they're doing, okay? Here's for example, the weekly gathering. Here's what they have to do. And here is the gathering agenda. It's right there under week 1. If you're the lead student, it pops up and it tells them right there what it is. However, I'm going to show you a little different, easier way. Just for us as missionaries, you can go through the weekly ones or go to student resources. Well, guess what? Under supplemental resources, you're going to find information on here to help them that they're going to need, but also here's what you need in terms of, here's your gathering guide that they need to be aware of. That's in the very first lesson you talk about, and that's part of their homework for the first 2 weeks is the gathering guide. So that's there. We have a link to that on that quick access, and here's also the gathering guide for you as missionaries. And this is where we go in and we can go over here. We can click that little button, download it, save it, and you've got it right on. If you want to save it, it's up to you. But
Elder
there's resources. Yes.
Something that just occurred to me, if you're going to have 2 observing students, these classes only on Canvas, you've got your current week and your future week that is open.
Right.
But a 3rd week out is not going to be open. So that observing student, if they want to see, if they're 3 weeks out, they need to be given that agenda maybe earlier, maybe not, but I just know they won't be able to go in and see it.
We've only had 2 or 3 that have ever asked for it early.
Okay.
Generally, by the time they need it, they have access to it.
They have access. Okay.
Right. So
I think they can see all the agendas at the bottom, just like we can.
Can they? It just I know each week will not open.
Right. The weekly thing won't, but if they go all the way to the bottom where
And
it has all
the resources, you can open at any time.
yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, your student resources is
They don't let them work ahead.
yeah, they can't work
No.
ahead.
But click on the
They can click on student resources.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
one other thing I would point out to you, because, and I just saw this and I forgot about it earlier. Under student resources, here's a lot of information on math lessons, online tutoring, and so forth, grammar, vocabulary. These are really good helps for the missionaries or for the students. You also have, can you see my quick access?
Yes.
Okay, so also under here is math. This here is where a bunch of helps are that we've accumulated over the last 2 semesters that we have put in that are extremely helpful that you're going to need, especially in semester 2. Not so much semester 1, but in semester 2, this document will be something you'll want to share with your students and help them with this. So there's some really, 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 really good stuff
You
that
don't
will
have to know how to do the math, do we?
help knock down some of the struggles they're having with math.
This isn't calculus. Is it?
So,
And one thing on the missionary, that missionary site, there's also a calendar on the right side. So that if the students have questions about, you know, the end of the semester things, that calendar's there and you can go through and look at all of the dates.
right. And you'll find the academic as one of the links at the bottom of your weekly update newsletter you get to. Any other questions?
Another request. I don't know if anyone else is having trouble, but navigating the Path 2.0 has been very frustrating to me. It's just anytime you go into a student's information, there's no back button. You have to go out and then go back up. You can go back to groups, but I find myself having to start over from the beginning almost every time to find anything. It's really hard to navigate. I'm wasting a lot of time there.
Yep.
Welcome to the club.
Okay, so it's not just me. I thought maybe I just missed something, but
Nope.
I have a tip for you.
okay.
When you're looking at your group, never click on the student. Instead, right click on it and open in a new tab.
Oh, I like that.
Then your original list is still always there.
Okay, so then I can see that. That's great. Boy, you can't go back and forth.
So let's just talk about what Elder Lowry or Elder Cotter is talking about here. So I'll just pull up one of our groups, one of our students here.
If they could just add a couple extra buttons, even to partition it out by semester or something, so we don't have to scroll all the way down through the dozens of classes.
We have made that suggestion.
Oh, thank you.
So, there are several things that they've done in this new program versus Path 1.0 that is very frustrating. So here's what he's talking about is I just right-clicked and I'm going to open it up in a new tab.
Okay, I like that.
So I can still go in and I can still look at her information. And let's talk about their information, by the way. This is the finance tab. Is where you find out if a student owes any money. Profile, there's really nothing here other than if it's an L student, you could go in and see how they did on their test if it matters to you. This is important here because this shows you their grades. This student has a cumulative GPA of 4.0, which is great, okay? So this doesn't apply to you yet. This person has had 2 semesters, this student. This is Mandy, she's Amanda, but she goes by Mandy. That's her preferred name, is Mandy. So in her case, she has a cumulative GPA of 3.0 or higher. On Monday, we will be telling all of our third semester students who have that 3.0 or higher GPA, we will be telling them it's now time to apply for BYU Idaho. So in talking to Sister Lowry over the holidays, we discovered that we had a problem. They're supposed to automatically do all this stuff as part of PC 103. Well, apparently some of it's not quite as automatic as we thought. So we will have them go ahead and go in and apply. as a pathway student coming in, they can then start turning in their transcripts and all that kind of stuff. So they're ready at the end of their third semester of pathway to immediately roll right into BYU Idaho. So that's what Sister Lowry at this point has suggested. Let me mention a couple of other things too that I've mentioned last time, and I just realized I didn't mention. When you talk to a couple of things I've learned with to help, like with Ellen Sister Lowry or others, is I will take and copy this information. I'll highlight, copy and paste that into an email because that gives me a student ID number. So it's faster to look up numbers for students. The other thing, I want to talk just briefly about the federal rules and regulations around privacy. All of you had to take a training and test on FERPA, FERPA, and FERPA, FERPA. And even though it says here there's no restriction here on her information going out and the details of her information, I have never shared this with any student ever out there. And I don't do that for a very important reason. I don't ever want it to come back and say that we are sharing student private information from the students. Even though they've said it's okay, I don't do that. So what do? If Mandy needs to talk to Bethany, how do we handle that? We tell them, say, go to GroupMe. You're all on GroupMe. You're all hidden in GroupMe. You can't see any private information. You can send a private message through GroupMe. If you want to share your information that way, that's fine. But I don't ever share this information. So you need to be very cautious of that. I have lots of information here about Mandy. I have her phone number. I have emails. I have her address. Her date of birth, and very specifically, I know her age. I know what ward's in stake, and I want to be very careful what I share. Now, having said that, let me share with you a couple things. If you're not aware, here is in the front page of your group. Now, if you recall, I'm going to go back. When you come into Pathway, come up here, you're going to click on Places, My Sites, and then you're going to come down here, and you're in the Utah area, and you're in the Utah Virtual Program. And so then it comes up, and it's going to show all the programs that are available through the Pathway in our area. And you see the spring 2019, fall 2019, and winter 2020, which is your group. So now you're going to click on groups. So we tried something, and it seems to be working. We actually changed the way we have these listed, so you can actually go all the way through and find your spring or your winter group. Now, Elder and Sister Bunderson aren't on here today. Let's see. Let's pick on Elder and Sister Jasperson. So I'm going to click on there. I'm not sure how much of this you can see, but as district leaders, we can see all the groups, and we can work through this. You should be able to see your group. By the way, if you ever need to make an edit on here, you can click on there and edit. You can go in and make sure if you need to put a note here, or say your Zoom ID room changes or whatever, that's how you change that. This is how we establish the capacity and so forth, and the meeting times and so forth and so on. All right, so let's go back. So if you come over here, since it loads, right here it says PDF with an arrow down. If you click on that, it's going to open up a roster of everybody that's in your class. And it always has this first page. There's nothing to do. It's part of the attention from BYU. They want to make sure we're following this federal law so nobody gets huge fines. But as you go in here, it has some of the private information in here. Not all of it, but it has some of it. Okay, now I just noticed a couple things here as I went through this. Andrea Gutierrez. Now, by looking at this would indicate to me that Andrea might not be a member of the church, because there's no information listed here for her name, for her stake and ward. That means she's going to have to pay the higher fee. higher fee when she goes to register. Let's see what Andrea Gutierrez. So I'm going to go to Andrea here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to open her up. And here's the detail. And I'm going to finance. And see, she's getting the non-member charge.
It did say yes, though, I think on there for LDS, I noticed.
Not for her.
Oh, okay, maybe I saw
Not for
that
her.
wrong. Okay.
Okay. She's being charged a non-member, and the reason I know she's being charged a non-member is because her record does not have her ward and stake number attached.
But it does say
It says is
LDS.
LDS.
Yes, it says yes on there.
Where?
Next
Right
to
above stake.
Of stake.
Yes, it does say that, but her member's ID number is not attached. And until we attach that, she's going to be charged as if she's not a member.
Okay.
Okay? So how do we fix that? Well, you can go to it's real simple to fix. They go to their the churchofjesuschrist.org website. They go into their account, they sign in. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my name. I go back to my name, and under account settings, I can pull up account settings. And by the way, there's a tutorial on this already, but here's the information.
She has it. Right.
All right, it's being slow. Here we go. Okay. I happen to have two-step verification in mine. So I have to, that's part of, I use two-step verification for a lot of things. Okay.
Locked out.
No. So that's interesting. I've never had that happen before, but for whatever reason, it changed the verification code. All right. So this comes up and it tells your name and all that kind of stuff. This is how you can set up the mobile phone and your email and do subscriptions and blah, 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 blah. But this is where it's important, is right here, the membership. That is where they put in their membership record number, which is also found on their temple recommend, or they can get a hold of their ward clerk. And if this were blank, as it will be on this particular student we're talking about, on Andrea, because hers is not in there, it means this is blank. And it doesn't show her as a member, it doesn't recognize her as a member. So she has to put that number in. Now, we helped a student do that, or a prospective student do that last semester, and she's from Jamaica. It wouldn't take it, and don't know what the problem was, but there's a helpline, an 800 number in that case. She called them, and they immediately fixed it. And within a couple of days, she was up and running, and it was not a problem. So just
and Pathway support could do things like that for them?
No. This was through the church's
membership support. Okay.
And it will come up and give you it gives you a place to put in the number. If it doesn't work, then it gives you an 800 number to call for support.
Is that in their profile where they have to add that?
In their church profile, that is correct.
But in their Pathway profile, I mean, when they were trying to correct it?
No, it's in the church profile.
So it'll automatically come from the church profile into that?
Correct. They need to go into their LDS.org account, their membership account that they've set up. Is where it is, and that's where Pathway pulls it from the membership records to verify that they're a member.
I think there's a document in our quick links too about how to add a member record number to
that's correct. There is one.
Your account.
So we should be going through our student list, and if we see any of those missing wards and stakes, just verify that they really are truly not members.
Yes.
Okay.
And if they're not, again, in our quick links, there's a document on that.
Okay.
It's pretty fast. I mean, I look at the finances to make sure people are paid and to help them so they're able to get registered for the next semester.
Okay.
Because otherwise they won't be able to. So there's how you get your record. Now, how do you need to send emails to these people. How do I do it? Well, there's a couple of ways to do it. But let me show you what I think is the easiest way to do it. And that's over here where it says email. Instead of just clicking on it, right click on it, copy email addresses, come over here, you can compose an email in whatever browser, whatever it is you use for your emails. We've set up a separate email account. And I just copy and pasted all those email accounts into the blind carbon copy so nobody has emails or whatever. And I always send myself a copy. And so here's all the emails from Elder Sister Jasperson. If I wanted to send out an email to their students, I could write from here, and then and away it goes. Now I'm not going to do that, obviously, but I want you to see over here, email students. I always send myself a copy, and I keep them in here. I keep copies of almost every email, and I've organized my email box in such a way. And you might say, well, why in the world do you need a copy of your an email you sent to a student? Well, it just goes back again to, if anything ever comes up, I can pull that email out, which I've had to numerous times. I can pull out that email, and if I send something to Elder Cotter, I send something to the Lowrys, missionaries, whatever, I always keep a copy so that I've got it in case something comes up. So, and for me especially, this is having worked at a college, I learned this. This is how I learned this, is that I don't ever want a female student to accuse me as a male of sending something inappropriate. And so by having that email, copy of that email, I always kept it. If anything ever came up, I could say, well, wait a minute, here's the email. So.
Elder Cotter, how did you send text to that whole giant group of admitted but not enrolled students without, is there a quick way to put all of their numbers in a text?
You're muted, Elder Cotter.
Sorry. Yeah, we were trying to reach out to students that are admitted that have not accepted their offer for enrollment. There was about 80 of them on the list. And what I did in that case, I created a master text, sent it to the first person, then I just tapped on my screen to copy that text, pasted it into a new one. Then I tapped the microphone and spoke of the next phone number, sent it to that one.
Okay.
I did that over and over again. I was able to send 2 or 3 of those a minute, so it didn't take me very long.
Okay.
But I did not have a tool to send it to all of them at once.
Okay.
I did send an email to all of them at once.
Right.
After I captured all their emails, but the text had to be go one at a time.
Okay. That's what I wondered. I've done that where I've copied it and then put in another number. So, but I didn't know if you had a way that grabbed all those numbers at once.
Don't I wish?
I know.
Yeah, we wish a lot of that. Anyway. All right. There's a lot of information we've shared with you today. Anything else?
I would just say if you're having a hard time reaching your students, you know, you just never know. Some of these people are good at email, and some are good at text, and some are good at voicemail, and some of them are good at nothing. But whenever I'm trying to reach a student, I first will send them a text. First will call them, then I will immediately send them a text, and then I will immediately send them an email. I do it all right, 1, 2, 3, bang, and see which one they respond to first. And if they don't respond within 24 hours, I do it again and I put second notice at the top. And eventually, most of them will get the message. There will be a few students that just never respond, and never figured that out exactly. But
I have 2 students. I told my husband, this is a good example of why we need to be patient. I called one number several times and texted, and then finally her father responded, she's still on her mission. She's coming home today. That's why she didn't respond. And the other one I hounded until he responded, and he was on his honeymoon. I felt really bad.
And if you send out mass emails, you have to remind them it could be in their junk mail, because some email servers just automatically put group things into the spam. So I've had several students say, oh, it was in my junk mail.
Yeah.
So.
Especially when you blind copy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ask them to put your email address in their safe sender list or on their contact list, and that should help.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
All good little hints. You know, you're going to get going in this and you struggle. We're here. You can send us, you can call either one of us. Sister Gifford's phone number is 312-2446. I'll just send this in the chat so you've got it.
Or put it on your whiteboard.
It is on that in your quick access and the virtual missionary list. All of their numbers are in there.
Okay, we want to thank Elder Gifford and Sister Gifford for everything. And I imagine you will be sending or, recording this. You've already recorded it, but you'll make it available for everybody.
Yep.
So,
We will. You now have Sister Gifford's numbers first, my number second, and then there's our email address. So, and if you have questions, if you need some additional training, that's part of our call. Is we're the trainers for the zone. So don't hesitate to call and ask for help.
You've done a great job.
Thank you. I have a favor to ask you all. I'm in a really cold room and I have a space heater that makes a noise. Can you hear it?
No.
Okay, that's fantastic. Because I thought, oh, okay, I can freeze, but I just would like to use this. Sounds good.
Sister Anderson, is that a finished flag I see behind you?
A finished what?
Finished flag on the wall.
This one is Scotland. I've got Iceland.
Is it? I wondered if it was Iceland. Okay, I'm sorry, everybody.
That's okay.
Iceland.
So this wall are all my ancestors.
Okay.
And the flags of the country. So I come from actually the first Icelandic ancestor to immigrate to the United States.
The ones that immigrated to Spanish Fort.
Yep.
So do you know Elder and Sister Geslison?
I don't.
Okay, well, I was in the U.S. Navy before I went on a mission, but I was in the Navy during Vietnam. And I was assigned to Iceland for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And I was there back in the 70s, and Iceland was reopened to missionary work, and Elder Rutland came and reopened it and stuff. I have the original tracts that were first published, the Joseph Smith story, Plan of Salvation and stuff. Anyway.
It's a great place. We just went backpacking through Iceland this last summer, through the mountains, and it's an amazing place. It feels about 200 years behind the times, and I think that's just great.
Yeah. Very good. Sorry, I recognized the flag, but I thought, no, that's surely not Iceland. That's got to be Finland. So.
It is Iceland.
All right.
Okay. I think we're all done then.
Thank you so much for all this.